Oh, here we go. These are the ground tests. These are the ground tests of everything, and then that's a Falcon 9. Here they're just gonna drop it. They've tested the shit out of this rocket.
It's Sunday, 19th of January, and we are awaiting SpaceX's launch escape test in just under 17 minutes and 8 seconds. The test today is to demonstrate the effectiveness of our launch escape system. Now we are currently go for launch from pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Isbrucker, Falcon Principal Integration Engineer here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California.
And I'm Marie Lewis with NASA Public Affairs. The purpose of today's test is to demonstrate Crew Dragon's ability to safely fly astronauts away from danger and separate from the Falcon 9 rocket during an in-flight emergency. Now, SpaceX's launch escape system is a first of its kind, with its 8 Super Draco thrusters built directly into Dragon to push the spacecraft away from Falcon 9 in case of an emergency. You can think of it as a rocket on top of a rocket.
Now, in order to test our launch escape system, which is integral to the Dragon spacecraft you see in front of you on the video, we will be simulating an emergency with Falcon 9 at about 84 seconds into flight. This could be a few seconds early or late, as Dragon waits for Falcon 9 to reach a specific velocity before initiating the escape. Now, before Dragon separates and fires its Super Draco engines, it will command Falcon 9 to shut down its engines as part of the escape sequence. Because Falcon 9 is then unpowered, we are expecting the launch vehicle to fully break up at some point, which should create some particularly interesting views.
For sure.
Now, it's not every day you get to see something like that, so we're going to do our best to bring it to you live as it happens. But a reminder, with the weather and the clouds, we're going to try to find the views that are best. And to be very clear, this is all part of today's test. Within the context of this test, the views that you will see will allow us to validate the effectiveness of our launch escape system.
And we're hoping for some very exciting views, but the whole point of the test today is the next step in our multi-year efforts to fly astronauts again from U.S. soil. It's part of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, and it's a partnership we have with SpaceX and Boeing. But this is not the first time we are putting Dragon's launch escape system to the test. If you remember, back in 2015, SpaceX's pad abort test demonstrated Dragon's ability to escape from the Falcon 9 in the event of an emergency on the pad before liftoff. And the Super Dracos in the launch escape system on today's Dragon capsule you see there were successfully static fired this past November.
And in addition to the test that you just mentioned, SpaceX also flew a full uncrewed demonstration mission to and from the International Space Station last year with its Crew Dragon vehicle. Now, this was a full end-to-end test of the entire Crew Dragon system, validating that our upgraded Crew Dragon spacecraft could safely dock with the space station. And in addition, our team has conducted over 700 tests on just the Super Draco system alone. Really looking forward to seeing those perform in today's flight.
Absolutely. And if all goes well today, the next big milestone will be to launch astronauts, as we mentioned, to the International Space Station. That's part of what we call Demo 2 or Demonstration Mission 2.
Now, we're currently just inside of T-minus 13 minutes and 45 seconds and counting down. Now, weather's been a watch item the last couple of days with rough seas, sustained winds in the recovery area. We had to scrub yesterday. We're also still listening. They're evaluating constantly the weather in the splashdown area right now as we're doing the webcast. Now, we do have a 6-hour window today in case we need to wait for better weather or less cloud cover. We've obviously used 2.5 hours of it already, but right now we think this is our best opportunity. Now, if the weather does not cooperate today, we are preserving tomorrow as a potential backup. Now, as a reminder again, this is not a typical launch. We're purposely testing Dragon's escape system under the most extreme conditions. So while we want everything to go right today, we are prepared if everything goes wrong.
And if that does happen, that's the whole point. This is exactly why we test. We want to see if there's any potential issues, and we want them to happen now so we can address those before we put astronauts on board. And speaking of astronauts, we have NASA's Darrell Nail at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. That's where the test is taking place this morning. And he has more about what those very first astronauts assigned to fly Crew Dragon will be paying special attention to this morning. Darrell?
Yeah, good morning, John and Marie. It's a pretty nice day here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. You can see behind us here on the lawn, some of the media have gathered to shoot this launch. And of course, the countdown clock, the iconic one, they're counting 12 minutes until launch. As you mentioned, the first crew members assigned to fly Crew Dragon are NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. And they have the most, you could say, invested in the outcome of this test flight. Right now, they are just a few miles away from Launch Pad 39A, which is just behind my left shoulder here. They're in the SpaceX firing room inside the Launch Control Center, where they will closely monitor today's flight abort test. Now, right now, they've been training up until this point, training hard with NASA and SpaceX so they can understand every aspect of Dragon's systems, their spacesuits.
So I'm going to mute this guy just to make fun of that video. So yesterday, there was this big deal about seeing the two astronauts that'll be flying on SpaceX in their white fancy pants SpaceX spacesuits, practicing getting in and out of the capsule, which was basically a photo shoot so that they have all of these glorious pictures. I'm just amused.
That is the graduation exercise, like a lot of folks do on the NASA side, to make sure that we're really confident that we've got a good plan and good procedures in place for pulling that mission off.
What just happened to their video? Hit live button. What?
To make for
Thank you.
Getting ready for this flight, I think is a big milestone as well, because it's the last launch associated with us before we ride that rocket.
Yeah, that's very true. It is. It's kind of the final exam, so there's a lot riding on it, but also I think it's a culmination of a ton of work from everybody in NASA and SpaceX to get to this point.
I'm just really proud that the team is trying to pull off something so critical from a safety perspective. You know, if we needed to escape off of the rocket, to have that system demoed before we would actually use it is pretty cool that folks are making the investment to make that happen.
We feel really excited about kind of the progress that SpaceX and NASA have made to this point, and this kind of shows us that we're getting really close to our flight. So to see all these capabilities all put together, all the teams together, and to be able to launch this vehicle, it's just a huge boost of confidence.
Now, there's an interesting human side to Doug and Bob's story. They're not just crewmates, but they're also friends who have spent a lot of time together over the years. Both graduated from the same astronaut training class in 2000. Both flew on the space shuttle. Both are married to astronauts, and they were in each other's wedding. John and Marie, back to you.
All right, thanks, Darrell. You're taking a live look now. This is inside SpaceX's firing room 4. That's where Bob and Doug are sitting today, along with the NASA and SpaceX teams, following along today's test. And this past Friday, they completed what we refer to internally as a dry dress rehearsal. We saw some video of that during Darrell's segment. This is where the astronauts, along with the SpaceX and NASA teams, walk through those steps that they'll take before they get on board for Demo 2. We saw them suit up, and that is really exciting stuff, especially that was the first time we saw them suited up walking out of the astronaut suit-up room, and so really looking forward to doing that for Demo 2. Let's take a quick look now at Crew Dragon. It stands almost 27 feet tall from the bottom of the trunk to the top of the nose cone. And Crew Dragon is composed of two main elements. The capsule, that top portion, is designed to hold crew and pressurized cargo, and it has an unpressurized section known as the trunk that's down below. For today's test, much of the exciting work is going to be done by the Dragon's 8 Super Draco engines we talked about, built directly into the capsule.
Now, to give you a sense of power, when fired together, the 8 Super Dracos can move the spacecraft a half a mile in 7.5 seconds. So from a standing start, the Super Dracos accelerate the spacecraft to a speed of 436 miles per hour. That's a lot faster than a catapult launch from an aircraft carrier.
I know, and it's hard to imagine just moving that fast. I was trying to get a feel for it, so I did a little math, and it's about 3 times faster than takeoff on a commercial plane, if you can imagine that. In fact, one jetpack assembly, which consists of 2 Super Dracos, produces more thrust than an F-16 fighter jet at full afterburn. So, John, if you were to put
These
that
people
on-
do not have a lot of imagination if they're struggling to compare this. This is 4Gs. There's a lot of roller coasters you've been on where you may have pulled about this. It's not bad. It's fine. They live. This is the key. They live.
Partially open at first if we've got video, then fully open. These will then control the descent of the Dragon capsule softly into the Atlantic Ocean.
And while that vehicle that you see on the pad looks like a typical Crew Dragon spacecraft from the outside, if you had a look inside, you'll see that the interiors have been stripped down, and there it is. We do have a look inside for you. The cabin has no interior panels except for one on the ceiling, and there's no control panel in there for this test. Dragon's also outfitted with 2 seats that you see there, and sitting inside those seats, we have 2 anthropomorphic test devices.
What, no cool acronym? I'll just call them test devices.
We have enough acronyms, John.
While the test devices do not have any sensors on them today, the seats they're sitting on are instrumented. We'll be able to measure the loads on the seat to ensure that there are no unexpected issues in this stressing test case. We've also made some other modifications to the Dragon interior for today's test.
That's right. There will be 3 cargo racks with some assortment of ballast or cargo bags and no floor. Now, below where the floor would be, there will be an assortment of mass simulators in place of the life support components and some other equipment that's down there when we have crew aboard.
Now, the test today will look a lot like a normal Falcon launch for the first minute and a half. We'll fly until Falcon 9 reaches a predetermined velocity. This will occur about 84 seconds into flight, and that happens at approximately 20 kilometers up. Once we reach the required velocity, Dragon will then trigger an escape. Now, as a reminder, the ground is not commanding this abort. It's up to the onboard computers to determine when to trigger the launch escape and do all the functions afterward. Once Dragon does trigger the launch escape, the first event will be commanding Falcon 9 to shut down its 9 Merlin engines. Now, as Marie and I mentioned earlier, Dragon will then separate from the Falcon using its 8 Super Draco engines, firing for about 8 seconds. That carries Dragon capsule with the trunk up and away from Falcon. Now, once they finish firing the Super Dracos, we coast, we jettison the trunk at apogee, we reorient the capsule to come back for entry into the Earth's atmosphere. We deploy about 2 minutes after apogee the drogue chutes, and about a minute after that, the 4 main parachutes will be released. Dragon will then splash down softly in the Atlantic Ocean about 35 kilometers offshore. Now, when Dragon separates, we no longer have that smooth aerodynamic shape on top of the rocket. So the supersonic Falcon is going to be exposed to strong aerodynamic forces in the upper atmosphere. So we expect those aerodynamic forces will cause Falcon to start to tumble. Our simulations show that the Falcon will likely break apart due to the tumbling, instead of having the destruct system triggered and destroying the rocket. So now again, this entire test will take less than 10 minutes from the time Falcon 9 lifts off until Dragon splashes down. But Marie, once we splash down, the work's not over yet.
Right, it's just beginning for the recovery team. We have a lot of things happening very rapidly in that first 10 minutes, and the recovery operation takes quite a bit longer. It'll be similar to the pad abort test, but it will happen slightly farther downrange in the Atlantic Ocean. So after splashdown, recovery teams will already be standing by for range approval to enter and clear that hazardous area. And if all goes nominally, SpaceX could have fully recovered Dragon back onto its recovery ship approximately 2 hours after splashdown. Keep in mind, though, if this were to happen during an actual flight with crew on board, rescuing them would be the #1 objective, of course, and recovering Dragon would be a secondary operation. So if that were to happen, an elite military rescue team would deploy at a moment's notice. They're part of the U.S. Air Force's Detachment 3, or they have this really great nickname, the Guardian Angels, which is very appropriate. They would jump from military aircraft. There's a photo of that happening there, where they would deploy their own parachutes to gently reach the water, and from there they would help the crew out of the capsule and then onto a life raft to wait for a larger ship. Now, this is not just any life raft. It has a cover that they can put over the top to protect them from the elements, and it's also equipped with food, water, and medical supplies, enough to last for days if needed. This would be, of course, a worst-case scenario. It's one that we don't expect to happen. But of course, what do we do when we're preparing to fly crew? We always plan for the worst. So this is something that NASA, SpaceX, and the Department of Defense have rehearsed together over and over so that we're ready for anything.
And the SpaceX recovery team is also keeping an eye out for Falcon 9. As we mentioned earlier, Falcon 9 is expected to break up over the water. And we've got a dedicated team of SpaceX recovery personnel who will be staged and ready to begin recovering debris shortly after breakup. Well, the clock's kicking down rapidly. We're just over T-minus 2 minutes and 14 seconds from liftoff. You've seen the crew access arm. It's back. That was retracted away from Dragon at T-minus 42 minutes. A few minutes after that, Dragon launch escape system was armed just before we began loading propellant onto the Falcon 9. So if an unplanned situation arose right now, Dragon would perform an escape. Now currently the engines are chilled in for launch on the Falcon. The Dragon spacecraft is waiting for liftoff. We have retracted, and you can see in the video the strongback is moved away just about 2 degrees in readiness for liftoff. We have also finished loading liquid oxygen onto both the stages, so the Falcon 9 is just about ready. The large white cloud you see coming off of the side, we're venting down the pressure from the liquid oxygen supply lines in the strongback in preparation for launch. The last event you're going to hear, start up at 1 minute when the computers take over and the launch director go at 30 seconds.
And we're coming right up on that in about 15 seconds now. We'll be just a minute from liftoff. And Falcon 9 is, as you just heard, is moving into those final stages of the final countdown for the in-flight abort test today. So far, weather's looking okay. We're hoping it's going to continue to cooperate, and the range is green for launch. Now, if for some reason we scrub today, we will shift to our backup launch window, which is tomorrow at the same time. Again, this is just a test. We're fully expecting Falcon 9 to break up, so don't be alarmed if you see that happening live. And with that, let's listen in now. We're just 45 seconds from the final countdown.
FTS is armed. Go for launch.
And now we all get to sit here
15 seconds.
staring. 10,
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, liftoff. Simplify, aim high. Go Falcon, go Dragon.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
so we're 1 minute from boom. 1 minute from boom.
T plus 30 seconds. Falcon 9 with the Crew Dragon capsule is heading east from pad 39A. Everything looking good right now. As we get ready for max dynamic pressure, we are now throttling down the first stage engines on the Falcon
power
9.
and telemetry nominal.
Everything continues to look good. We're
Doing this in
approaching a period of
January is just
maximum
wrong.
dynamic pressure.
Vehicle is supersonic and passing through maximum dynamic pressure.
You've heard we're supersonic. We're through max Q. We're getting ready now to throttle the engines back up on the first stage.
Stage 1, throttle up.
There's the call out. Okay, the major activity coming up in just over 10 seconds. Shutdown and Dragon escape from the Falcon 9.
There's shutdown. Nope, I was wrong. That was a cloud. There's shutdown.
Dragon launch escape initiated.
Dragon's away.
And you can hear some really loud cheering in the room. Okay, you just saw a bright flash there. It looks like that may be Falcon 9 breaking up. We've got some loud cheers here in Hawthorne. The folks that just watched live the Dragon separate, The next milestone we have coming up at 2 minutes, 25 seconds, we're expecting to see the trunk jettison. So that claw that connects the trunk to the capsule is going to separate, allowing Dragon to separate from the trunk. That's coming up in 15 seconds.
So I remember
And we do have the
Challenger,
report. Loss of telemetry from Falcon 9, first stage.
and Challenger blew up in January. And so this is just like, why are you doing this in January?
And there you just saw the trunk jettison. Again, some really loud cheers here in Hawthorne, California. This test is looking great so far.
Nice view from the back of the Dragon capsule. We're also trying to see if we get the view there on the right-hand side from the aircraft that's orbiting the area. Now the Dragon control system is now going to be reorienting the capsule. We're at a high altitude where the aerodynamics are negligible. So we're going to use the small Draco thrusters on the Dragon capsule to reorient it. That gets it in a position with a heat shield down to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, and then later to deploy the drogue parachutes.
Now those drogue chutes, we expect to get confirmation that those have deployed at T plus 4 minutes and 48 seconds. So we've got just a little bit of breathing room before we hear that happen. Those parachutes are protected during ascent, on orbit, and re-entry by a panel that's up near the nose cone of the capsule. So we're going to jettison the panel, then the mortars will fire to deploy those 2 drogue chutes. Again, that's coming up in just over a minute at T plus 4 minutes and 48 seconds. Now those drogue chutes, when we see those come out, those will open, those will come out before the main parachutes. Those drogue parachutes are what we use to begin to decelerate the Dragon capsule in preparation for splashdown.
We understand we're getting into the drogue deploy envelope on the Dragon capsule.
We expect that will happen when Dragon is at about 20,000 feet. About 15 seconds to drogue chute deploy. And there they are. Drogue chutes are out. Again, some major cheering going on here as every stage of this test unfolds. Now we're going to be getting ready for the main chutes to deploy.
Now, main chutes will be coming up fairly quickly. There are 4 main parachutes. These are the newest Mark III parachutes. They're each 116 feet in diameter. We deploy them about 2 kilometers above sea level, 6,500 feet above the Atlantic Ocean. We're getting good views from the Dragon and the airplane, showing the 2 drogue chutes. Now we're just waiting for the main parachutes to be deployed very shortly. And we have the view from a different camera on Dragon showing the 4 main parachutes. Now they are deployed in a reefed condition. That means we're keeping them fairly shut to avoid shocks, and now we're slowly opening up the 4 parachutes. Great views coming off of the Dragon camera on the left, and we can also see the 4 parachutes from the airplane on the right.
That is a really cool view.
Nice view of the orange and white parachutes as they're opening up into the 2nd position. And they're going to fully open. From fully open, we'll be descending about 20 to 25 feet per second down to the Atlantic. So from that 6,500 foot altitude, it's going to take us a few minutes to splash down. Also right now that the mains are out, a sequence is performed on the Dragon, which will reorient the crew seats into a splashdown position, give them a little better angle to take the slow bounce as we hit the ocean. Now, Maria, I talked about the parachutes came out initially at a reefed condition. That's fairly standard. They come out not fully open. That way they're minimizing the shock on the parachutes. We're also minimizing the shock on the capsule. Again, we want to give a smooth ride to the crew as they are coming back through the Earth's atmosphere.
Right.
Now, the parachutes are located behind a door that's at the bottom of the capsule. It's below the crew hatch. So Dragon commands the door to release, and as you saw in the video, the drogue parachutes pull the door away, and that pulls the 4 main parachutes out. Now, these are the new Mark III parachutes. We've completed here at SpaceX over 80 tests of that parachute system, including 10 multi-parachute tests of this particular upgraded parachute design over the last few months to demonstrate that the design is ready for flight.
And we're just inside 2 minutes of when we expect to see splashdown. The recovery teams are already out there in the Atlantic Ocean standing by, ready with fast boats to begin their initial approach to Dragon. Again, we mentioned this before, but the recovery operation we expect to take a couple of hours.
I've heard a call out, we're below 500 meters.
And we expect when Dragon splashes down, it's going to be roughly 32 kilometers offshore. Again, we're looking at a live view. So far, all things have appeared to go nominal for this test. All things looking great so far. We saw the 4 main parachutes deploy. You're looking at them now, fully open. And we are coming up on about a minute until splashdown.
I think we may have heard a call out of 100 meters to go.
Yeah, I just heard that too.
Yep.
Now those 4 parachutes are actually going to be released from the capsule after splashdown, and they'll be recovered too.
And we are down.
Down a little bit early, in fact. And there you can see the recovery boat beginning to approach instantly. I'm going to try to talk a little bit louder so you can hear me over the folks here. This has been a really exciting thing to see because we had the weather. We weren't really sure if the weather was going to cooperate. We were trying to weigh, is it favorable for launch, but also is it favorable for recovery, because they really have to watch the height of those waves in order to do this operation. That fast boat is just off screen now, but there's 4 fast boats out there in the area to begin, again, that initial approach to Dragon. The recovery operation from here takes about 2 hours, but all in all, this looked like a really great test.
Yeah, a lot of fun watching the Dragon come down. We had great views from the onboard camera in particular. Now I think this camera is from our Go Searcher recovery ship, which is also the tender for the fast boats. You saw one of them headed out there. And you can also see it looks still a little choppy, so you understand we were kind of on the edge of the weather conditions out in the splashdown area. But they assessed the boat data, the buoy data, looked at the forecast and said we were go. And while we took 2.5 hours to get here, we finally got here and it was great. And that's the summary for today. It looks like right now a great test. Visually, everything happened. Falcon 9, you saw the liftoff. We had kind of a long view from the camera. Dragon did shut down the 9 Merlin 1D engines and separate. We did see the flash as the Falcon 9 came apart, as predicted. No surprise there. Dragon, we saw a great view as it got to apogee. It deployed the trunk, separating it, reoriented. Then the drogue chutes came out, the main chutes came out, and then we just waited for that nice soft splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean.
And we saw, and it looks like we just lost the view from out there on the ship, but you couldn't really see much from that particular angle. Again, that recovery operation is going to take a couple of hours, so we're not going to stay on the air for the duration of that. But we are going to be back for a news conference coming up at 11:30 Eastern time this morning. That would be, let me do the math real quick, 8:30 Pacific time. We're going to hear from NASA and SpaceX leaders about their initial thoughts on this test that you just saw. Of course, everything looked fantastic, but there's going to be a lot of data to dig into. They're going to also collect those parachutes, get a lot of data from that, and then see what the next steps are on the path to Demo 2, when, of course, we're going to be launching NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. So stay tuned for that news conference. It will be carried live on NASA TV. If you're watching on the web, just tune to nasa.gov/live so you can see that coverage. Again, that's 8:30 Pacific time, 11:30 Eastern. Thanks so much for joining us for this morning's test.
All right, everyone. Yeah, so we just finished watching a SpaceX go boom. I'm hoping that they're going to replay it. No, they're not. Crud. Stop. Where's the stop button? Cancel. That's what I want to click. Okay, apparently I don't know. Thank you for the sub. Thank you so much. Let's kill that and replace it with chat. So we are about 50 minutes away from there being a press release about, not a press release, a press conference about what we just watched. That will be appearing live on NASA TV. We can cover it here. Thank you, Bad Panda. So I have Malachi asleep beside me. I would give him treats. Can you look for a couple of different angle replays? You can seek back to replay it. So let's seek back to replay it first. So there. Come on, let's see the whole thing. Okay, here we go. Let's play. What? I hate everything. I apparently can't internet. Oh, I bet it's rendering. 11:40 for separation and play. Go boom. I know, but I can't make it go. It's rendering or something. Reload. There we go. So that's where I want.
Falcon 9 with the Crew Dragon capsule is heading east from pad 39A. Everything looking good right now. As we get ready for max dynamic pressure, we are now throttling down the first stage engines on the Falcon
power
9.
and telemetry nominal.
Everything continues to look good. We're approaching the period of maximum dynamic pressure.
Vehicle is supersonic and passing through maximum dynamic pressure.
You've heard we're supersonic. We're through max Q. We're getting ready now to throttle the engines back up on the first stage.
Stage 1, throttle up.
There's the call out. Okay, the major activity coming up in just over 10 seconds. Shutdown and Dragon escape from the Falcon 9.
So we are watching a replay. This is a replay.
Miko, Dragon launch escape initiated.
So there we have cut off of the engines. The cheering is the Draco
And you
separated,
can hear some really loud,
and there's the
cheering in
rocket
room.
going down.
Okay, you just saw a bright flash there. It looks like that may be Falcon 9 breaking up. We've got some loud cheers.
Launch escape
Let's just watch that
initiated.
again.
Dragon's away.
And you can hear some really loud cheering in the room. Okay, you just saw a bright flash there. It looks like that may be Falcon 9 breaking up. We've got some loud cheers here in Hawthorne. The folks that just watched live the Dragon separate. The next milestone we have coming up at 2 minutes, 25 seconds, we're expecting to see the trunk jettison. So that clock.
All right. So Refs Matt mentioned that he caught a video Friday night of 38 Starlinks passing overhead. If you can drop in the URL for that, refs Matt, I will go ahead and play that. For those of you who don't know what Starlink is, Elon Musk has a highly controversial program to launch a series of basically suitcase sats into very low Earth orbit that will form a communications network that should bring low-cost internet to all parts of the planet Earth. Now, this is controversial for two reasons. The first one being a lot of people don't believe Elon Musk will actually provide low-cost internet to rural parts of the Earth. He thinks this is only going to be for extremely wealthy Westerners. I'm really hoping that he actually comes through. The other controversial part, and there are 6 seconds left on the hype train, people. Yeah, it's just going to expire. The other thing that's controversial about Starlink is it's thought that it's going to like destroy the ability of astronomical observatories to get data. Folks are still working with SpaceX to see if they can get things at a link is going into Discord. They're working to try and get Elon Musk to change the words are hard. Brightness by changing what material, how the material, let me just focus on one thing. So it's hoped that SpaceX is going to change the material that the outside of the Starlink spacecraft is made of, either coating it in something or just plain changing it so that they aren't as highly reflective as they currently are. Allowing them to not be as big a nuisance to astronomical detectors. They will still be a nuisance, but if they're super bright, they can leave ghosts in the detectors that take multiple images to get washed out of the system. If they're faint, they simply cause a streak in a single image. Let me know, refs Matt, when to look for the link. Okay, so I'm going to follow the link that Annie just posted. Oh man, I can't see this far across the room. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Let's click there, click there, click there. Why are you opening it over there? I don't want you to open it over there. Pardon me while I talk to my computer. I have multiple screens going. Okay, there we go. So here we go. This is Starlink. I don't know if there's music on this. There isn't. So this is screen captures explaining what Starlink is from the SpaceX website. Explaining how these are basically self-destructing. That's all the Starlinks. So many Starlinks. So many Starlinks. And now we can start to see all of their little images in the sky. You can see the whole suite of them moving. Thank you for the follow. These are really hard to see with a camera. So watch right there. There's one of them, and there's multiple in the field. Trick spotting them. Once you spot them, you can't unsee them. There's another one. So you can see they're as bright as some of the stars in the field. Here's another one and another one. This is why they call them trains. Hello, Raj Luthra. So this is video Refsmat took of Starlink satellites passing over his sky, and you can just see the whole line of them. Now, in astronomical images, of course, these aren't all perfectly lined up, so there are multiple pixels across your image. It's just super annoying. We are currently about 38 minutes away from a press conference from NASA about the SpaceX abort test that we watched take place a few minutes ago. We are staying with you until we can cover that press conference. Currently, we are watching a video that Revsmat took of a train of Starlink communication satellites passing through the field of view on his camera. This is just absolutely amazing and horrifying all at once. But as I've said before, if Elon Musk actually comes through and provides low-cost internet for the world, this is going to be society changing. It's going to do good to eradicate the digital divide that is caused by geography and financial differences. But if he doesn't come through, then we're ruining our sky for scientific research for no particularly good reason, which would suck. So Refsmat, could you repeat again? How many did you count when you reviewed the video? So this is video from Buffalo, New York. Oh, you also caught a meteor. That's cool. Or an airplane. I don't know if that's a meteor or an airplane. That's moving like an airplane. I was initially really hopeful. For those of you who didn't catch the news, there was a daytime bolide over Puerto Rico a couple of days ago. There were some amazing videos taken that were posted on Twitter. So Larry asks, how long until this bunch reaches final orbit? I'm not sure. I do know it's a slow process for them to migrate from the orbits that they're in to the ones that they need to be in. 38 Starlinks in an aircraft. So that was an aircraft. Hello, Pedro 1615. End of February. So Annie is the one, Binary Ablaze is the one on our channel who really knows spacecraft better. I know just enough about spacecraft to be dangerous. I am the astronomer in the group. I'm also very cold, so if I'm slowly turning blue, it's because it's cold. Yeah. So Revsmat, thank you so much for this video. Wow, it's still going. I had no idea just how long it would take for a train of these things to pass by. No space toilets were harmed in today's launch test. yes, they are working to reduce the magnitude of these to 4th or 5th magnitude, hopefully darker if possible. Currently, they're 1st or 2nd magnitude. So they aren't as bright as the Iridium satellites, but the Iridium satellites were far fewer in number. They are bright enough to do damage to, or at least to saturate detectors and astronomical telescopes. If they can get them down to 5th or 6th magnitude, it still sucks, but it's a little bit better. Ideally, we'd like them to get a whole lot fainter than that. It's the same as the mail-in cam. Okay. So if anyone has identified a source of a launch video taken from a different angle, if DAS's video is up somewhere, I am happy to take a link and take a look at the abort launch test from a different angle. We do have links open on our chat. I think maybe that's the end of the train. No, there's one right there still going. Thank you, Defense, for grabbing that clip. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to this video.
There! Wow! No way!
I'm just laughing at the reactions.
There! Wow! No way!
Okay, let's watch that one more time.
There! Wow!
Okay, that's enough of that. Falcon said, nope. I agree. It really did. It really, really did. So I'm going to go ahead and switch views for a minute while I go ahead and find the NASA TV coverage that will be coming up with a press release. Not press release, press conference. See what I can do here. So currently we're just going to apparently be staring at there we go. The Earth. Because Earth. So we are, as I said, waiting for the NASA press conference. I'm going to begin this and go make more coffee because I need more coffee. For those of you who aren't subscribers, I'm also going to subject you to an ad, and I apologize only sort of in advance. Just working to pull up all the windows. There we go. So go ahead and enjoy a peaceful view of the planet Earth. I will return in just a moment with more coffee. Hello, I am back. This is CosmoQuest's continuing coverage of the Falcon 9 Crew Dragon abort test. Earlier this morning, SpaceX launched from Kennedy Space Center a Falcon 9 rocket that had previously been used 3 different times from all their different launch facilities. And aboard it was a Crew Dragon capsule. They cut off the engines on the Falcon 9 a minute and a half roughly after launch, and then let the autonomous systems take over to see just what would happen. And what happened was they successfully deployed the Draco engines, firing them. Thank you so much, Refs Matt, for the bits. Eddie jumped up and moved my desk. Come on. Ow. Hi. You have no manners. None. There are 2 other dogs. Off. Okay, now he's gonna sit. You really want this, don't you? Whoa! Okay, a piece of cardboard fell over and I ended up with 3 dogs running me down. It's okay, Stella. Stella is now thinking that the world is going to end. Yes. These are my doggos. Okay, so everything went well with the test. We are now currently waiting for a press conference. See you later, Larry. We are now currently waiting for a press conference that will go over exactly what the plans are now. So here's the thing. There has been so much talk for so long about how by the end of the last decade, NASA expected to be launching American astronauts aboard the Boeing Starliner capsule atop a Atlas rocket from Cape Canaveral Air Force Base, which is adjacent to Kennedy Space Center. And it was going to be American rockets aboard an American aircraft from American soil. This is one of those catchphrases that's been getting used a whole lot. Well, SpaceX is now ready to go, folks. They're ready to launch humans. So the question becomes, what additional hoops are there? When are they going to allow this launch to happen? What politics is going to be involved in this? So Annie is asking, completely off topic, is Stella walking down the stairs by herself? Yes, she is. Okay, Eddie is now leaning on me, Stella is leaning on me, and Malachi is watching suspiciously, all because cardboard fell. Yeah, this is kind of ridiculous. I have like full-on Australian Shepherds on my legs. And Bad Panda Bear points out, using Russian engines. Yeah, that's true. SpaceX built all of their own components. Now, the thing is with the Atlas rockets, which is what the Starship launches on, not Starship, Starliner launches on. These names are going to be the end of me. What the Boeing capsule launches on, I think those are actually American-made engines. Space Launch Systems, which is by United Launch Alliance, which is a consortium that includes Boeing and Lockheed. Those engines, I think, are Russian-made. I could be wrong. I'm hoping Binary Blaze will hop in and clarify, because she knows this better than I do. It's true, DPI. I do not get cold feet this way. It is so cold, so very cold. So cold. So very cold. All right, so I'm going to see if we have any further updates on the press conference. Thank you so much, Lancy. Hi, did you hear me say thank you? Do you think that means you get something? Okay, I'm going to switch to dog cam for a moment because I can, so that you can see the face that I'm currently facing. This is how we kill time waiting for NASA press conferences. You have to sit. Nope, no. You have to sit. Okay, so that was the dogs getting treats. So the American-owned space toilet is of Russian design. Oh man, I didn't know that. So there's Starliner, which is Atlas, and Orion is Space Launch Systems. Yes, Guido. It is so trickstery. So very trickstery. So we continue to wait for the press conference. I'm going to look and see if we have any updates on Twitter about this. Twitter has more ads than it used to. So I'm enjoying. I'm just going to put this up there. So yeah, I've got nothing. So, I'm enjoying the SpaceX hashtag is pretty cool right now. I love the screen captures of the rocket exploding with people writing, "You did good, SpaceX." It's like, this is the one and only time that you really expect things to go boom. Still waiting to see something about the press conference. Now here's a cool photo that I'm about to show you. This is coming from FLS Sport Guy. I don't know how well you can see that, but it looks like a flower the way he caught the explosion. I'm going to go ahead and retweet it. Okay, let me update my search, see if that will help me find something on the press conference. I'm just looking for confirmation that it's still going on time. Oh, the green screen was eating it. Sorry about that. So, Parabolic Arc confirms press conference 11:30 Eastern. So we are about 12 minutes away from the press conference. And Cosmic Perspective, who is down there, is sharing a picture of the press conference room. So AstroWise writes, so that's a pretty successful test. Any more impediments to SpaceX beginning crewed launches? Not that I'm aware of. I'm hoping that this press conference will go into that in detail. I'm getting a phone call from Walgreens. Sorry about that. I think I managed to just kill off the phone call. Yeah, Paranora, we need the technology to do that. We're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. It's true. Bad things do keep happening in The Expanse, Refs Matt. I actually binge watched season 4 yesterday because I could. I now need season 5. Now, please. Oh, Earth, you're so pretty. The Expanse is a fictional life lesson on why going to Mars will be hard. Well, it's not the way they did. Oh, that's all the spoilers you're going to get is they make it clear that life on Mars is hard. Okay, so we are now 9 minutes from the press conference, theoretically. 9 minutes. I'm sorry, did I make something crinkle? Eddie is so desperate right now. So Cosmic Perspectives on Twitter has a series of really good videos and photos of setting up for the recording that he did. So there was a video from Cosmic Perspectives. I'm looking to see, I did not mean to let's see what I can get from this. I'm looking to see if he got the abort test. Yeah, so I think I may have one more angle to pull up from. With everyday astronauts. This looks like same angle NASA had. Trying to figure out how to effectively copy the link between devices. There should be easier ways to do things. Oh, wow, that's cool that the thing showed up on the local space weather. So I'm trying really hard to get a link from Everyday Astronomer. So let's do it this way. Okay, so we're going to scroll ahead looking for the Go Boom. Okay, his audio is super low. I'm sorry about that. There's nothing I can do about how low the audio is.
Thank you guys. Seriously. Is that what you use, that telescope there? This telescope will track that. Oh, wow. Well, Tim, it's nice to meet you. Yeah. We met once in the gift shop. Yes. That would have been our shot, basically, right there. That is too bad. That is too. We would have seen the Draco's fire and everything. Oh, is the press site filling up?
Waiting for the... There, that looks like that's closer to launch. Now he's going to hopefully re-show it at the end. Trying to find things on live camera is awkward. Aha, wait, I saw things that looked like a launch. He missed the explosion. Thank you, Lancey.
We're going to cue back our playback here. I'm sorry that I've not had time to get through you guys' super chats. You guys are amazing.
Okay, so if he missed the video and the audio is kind of ooky, I'm not going to worry about scrolling. We are now on a different screen, at least, with our NASA coverage. So we are waiting for, in the next 2 to 3 minutes, the press conference to start. He was very disappointed. That's so sad. So if you notice, I have a different coffee mug than the one I had earlier this morning. This is because the one I had earlier this morning was ceramic, which meant it kept my hands warm. And the coffee went cold almost instantly because it's probably in the high 50s, low 60s down here. This time I got one that is not keeping my hands warm, but the coffee is still hot. So, yeah, SpaceX has a camera on the Falcon 9. SpaceX has cameras on pretty much everything. I'll need to look at NASA spaceflight. We did see a video that was from DAS that did catch the explosion. Ooh, it's snowing and -3 where Paranor is. Here it's completely clear and sunny and about -10 Celsius, 14 Fahrenheit. It's gross. It's really gross. Really gross. Here we are, killing time, waiting. So the reason that I wanted to stay tuned for this press conference is in hopes of getting answers to so many of your questions along the lines of what is next? What is the timeline for allowing human beings to launch with this? Is there additional training? Is there additional testing? What exactly is NASA going to require of SpaceX? I don't think they're going to be prepared to tell us all the details, but hopefully they had this press conference put together and planned with 2 separate scripts, one if everything went perfectly and one if everything failed miserably. Well, hopefully we're about to get that script for everything went perfectly. They won't have all the details at this time about what happened during launch. It's going to take time to get all the sensor readings and all the other information that they might need. I have a scared puppy because the boiler just kicked on. So hopefully they'll at least have some of the information being able to say, based on everything looking good, we assume that if all the sensor data comes back perfect as expected, then we're good to go. Yes, blue folder, red folder, like in The Martian. This is actually something that they do in preparation for many of these different things. You prepare for the best, you assume the worst. And I probably said that best. Wrong. You assume for the best, prepare for the worst. I don't know. It's a glass half empty thing. So now we just are waiting. They do have all of the press officers loaded into the room. So Raj Luther is saying, hopefully NASA's cameras managed to catch the explosion. I don't know. So we were watching the NASA SpaceX feed earlier, and they did catch it. What I'm waiting for is the video that was caught by the chase planes. I don't know if we're going to get to see that. All right, looking to see if there's anything new on Twitter. So Cosmic Perspectives managed to get the high-speed disconnects on Antares from an earlier launch. That's a pinned tweet. Never mind. Ignore that. Still waiting for more information on the press conference. So, according to Jean Maluka, who's looking at an itinerary, the post-test news conference at Kennedy with the following representatives: Jim Bridenstine, administrator of NASA, a SpaceX representative whose name does not appear, Kathy Luters, manager, NASA commercial crew, Victor Glover, astronaut, NASA commercial crew, Mike Hopkins, astronaut, NASA commercial crew program. So we are now expecting the NASA administrator, a random person from SpaceX, apparently, and the manager of NASA Commercial Crew, as well as 2 of the astronauts. Jeff Faust says it's Elon Musk. That's cool. I don't know, binary employees. I don't know. It would be cool if it was Elon Musk. This is me preparing for the worst. It's Elon level of test, so agree. Well, you never know. So this is a NASA press conference, and it's that gives me pause. Because if you were Jim Bridenstine, would you want to share the stage with Elon Musk? Oh, no, Franklin Brenham has agreed. Elon Musk in a press conference just confirmed reports that the core rocket booster did not survive. Musk said that the booster ran out of propellant and was not able to reignite. So, how are they seeing? Sorry, I'm reloading. So apparently the press conference has started, but they're not showing it on NASA TV. I'm going to see if I can grab this from a different link. Hold on. Yeah, so the press conference.
That's the very first.
Here's the sound. Let me get.
By the President of the United States to me as the NASA administrator that we're going to go to the moon and we're going to go sustainably. So what that means is when we say sustainably, that means we're going to stay. And Elon say he'd be interested in having a permanent presence on the moon. Sure. Well, that's the very first space policy directive given by the President of the United States to me as the NASA administrator that we're going to go to the moon and we're going to go sustainably. So what that means is when we say sustainably, that means we're going to stay. And Elon say he'd be interested in having a permanent presence on the moon. Sure. Well, that's the very first space policy directive given by the President of the United States to me as the NASA administrator that we're going to go to the moon and we're going to go sustainably. So what that means is when we say sustainably, that means we're going to stay. And Elon say he'd be interested in having a permanent presence on the moon. Sure. Well, that's the very first space policy directive given by the President of the United States to me as the NASA administrator that we're going to go to the moon and we're going to go sustainably. So what that means is when we say sustainably, that means we're going to stay. And Elon say he'd be interested in having a permanent presence on the moon. Sure. Well, that's the very first space policy directive given by the President of the United States to me as the NASA administrator that we're going to go to the moon and we're going to go sustainably. So what that means is when we say sustainably, that means we're going to stay.
Okay, I think I sorted the issue. What I was seeing on Twitter was actually from a prior launch. I'm sorry, I got confused. Just ignore me. We are still waiting for the post-test press conference, which is now running late. I switched from top tweets to latest tweets, and hopefully this will get me something more accurate. Okay, so NASA is saying 40 minutes past. Yeah, Guido, I agree. But hey, we're at least definitely on the correct stream, so there's that. I'm having a day, people. I am having a day. So Paranor, this is also a NASA thing that happens. Hello, Nancy. Hello. Cat herding is hard. So, SpaceX master race tweets: Boeing scrambles after new CEO catches fire during first press conference. That is amusing. Yeah, there's got to be a lot of stress going on right now for everyone over at Boeing. Space is hard, and innovation is required. Sometimes you just have to scratch everything and start from someplace new. So Bridenstine said his line on Twitter. Okay, so I'm searching a hashtag. I need to apparently go look at things from individuals. Let's do that. Oh, yes, he did. So 20 minutes ago, Jim Bridenstine on Twitter writes, "Congratulations to NASA and the SpaceX team for a successful in-flight abort test. This critical test puts us on the cusp of once again launching American astronauts on American rockets from American soil. Spacecraft recovery operations are underway." I am not waiting patiently. I am waiting impatiently with great frustration. Trying to figure out who I can look at on Twitter to get better information. Somebody give me information. They're not giving me information. If anyone has a suggestion of who to look at, I will gladly take it. And apparently I left my mouse just out of reach. Hold on. So Bad Panda, I think this is one where it's probably worth giving it another 5 minutes to see what happens. All right, still image. Let's open this up. So this is a still image caught Still frame at the moment of abort during the SpaceX in-flight abort test, 420 millimeter refractor with an 850 nanometer IR filter. Video to come. This is from David Hash, rather. This is indeed, you can see the Draco thrusters and you can see the heat of the Falcon 9 that's failing. Thank you so much for sharing that. We can continue to wait. Paranor, have you identified anyone who's in the room and actively tweeting at the moment? I'm just seeing post-flight abort test coming. Have not. I'm surrounded by sleeping dogs. All right. So, questions that we know that we have that are unanswered. Will NASA require SpaceX to use Falcon 9s that have previously never flown to launch their Crew Dragons? That didn't happen today. Today was, in fact, the 4th flight of that particular Falcon 9. In addition, we have the question of timelines. Okay, I'm going to present this one without comment and just let you all read it for yourself. Yeah, that's a thing. All right. Other things that people have that they'd like me to share. So we want to know timeline. We want to know, will they have to use the original, a rocket that previously hasn't been launched? Is there any additional testing? What information are they waiting to get back from the capsule? How is capsule recovery going in the high seas? So it turns out Cosmic Perspectives in-flight abort press conference was actually from a day ago. I screwed that up too. Oh, Twitter timelines. So we are continuing to wait. Good shots here. So what was Nancy asking? Since I came late to the party, can you explain what the scheduled sequence of events was supposed to be, e.g. liftoff, when the capsule detects that there's a need to be ejected, expecta, etc. So the timeline that we expected and that went off flawlessly was takeoff as normal, cut off the main engines to the Falcon 9 after they go through max pressure. Then after the engines cut off, the Draco engines fire to remove the capsule from the rocket, which is clearly having a bad day. Rocket, as it goes tumbling away, goes boom. Draco flies, goes up, deploys the drogue parachutes as it comes down. Those slow it down a small amount. Those 2 drogue parachutes then have 4 associated main parachutes. Lands in the ocean, gets picked up, life continues. It's good. Oh, the space ray. this is right. So I was born in Russia. Я работала в 6 метра телескоп на Caucasus. I worked at the 6 meter in the Caucasus Mountains back when it was still the USSR, and the science was amazing back then. Unfortunately, it doesn't stay that way. So here is, this is the shot that I really love because it looks something like a flower coming up. Let me see if I can scroll that better. So there's the flower. Looks kind of like a tulip. I may be having fantasies of spring. Let's see what this is. Here's some other nice shots. Oh, that's a cool shot. People are getting good at using HDR on this stuff. I think all of us are in fantasies of spring that are in the Northern Hemisphere right now. We are still waiting for the press conference to decide to start. I also see a dandelion. At least you have someone removing the snow. That is a positive. I'm tweeting to see if anyone has an updated time. I wonder if the big piece that kept going after the boom in the upper stage, if I recall, it was filled with water to simulate fuel mass. Don't know. Don't know. I'm having a sad. I want this to start. Okay. 47 seconds ago, Antonio Germillo. And the post-launch press conference is finally about to start. Look who's sitting there in the middle. I can't see. There is an Elon Musk in the room. All right, so hopefully, there.
And we are down.
Good afternoon. My name is Bettina Klein. I'm with NASA Communications, and welcome to this post-launch press conference talking about the in-flight abort of SpaceX's Crew Dragon, an important part of NASA's Commercial Crew program. Today with us, we have some great guests who will provide some remarks. First will be Jim Bridenstine, NASA Administrator, Elon Musk, Chief Engineer at SpaceX, Kathy Leaders, the Program Manager of our Commercial Crew program at NASA, and astronauts Mike Hopkins and Victor Glover. They'll begin with, as I mentioned, opening remarks, and then we'll open it to questions from both the members, the media in the audience, and those who have called via the phone and also social media. You can ask your questions on social media by using the hashtag AskNASA. With that, let's kick it off with Administrator Jim Bridenstine.
Well, thank you, Bettina. Another amazing milestone is complete for our very soon-to-be project, which is launching American astronauts on American rockets from American soil for the first time since the retirement of the space shuttles. We're very grateful. Congratulations to SpaceX and the entire NASA team on this final major flight milestone that we needed to accomplish. Make no mistake, there's a lot left to do. We have a number of parachute tests upcoming, and of course we're going to get a lot of data from this particular test, and so we're not quite there yet, but by all accounts this was a very successful test. And when we think about what we have done so far with the Crew Dragon, we've had a pad abort test that was successful. We've had now a high altitude abort test that has been successful. On Demo 1, we launched, we controlled the spacecraft, we docked to the International Space Station, we undocked, and then we had entry, descent, and landing. So this is a program that is moving forward very fast, and I personally want to give my strongest congratulations to the NASA team, which has been amazing, and of course the SpaceX team, which has also been amazing. So congratulations to everybody involved, and I'll turn it over to Elon.
All right. Well, let's see. I'd like to, likewise, just express great appreciation and admiration for the SpaceX and NASA teams that made this happen. Without a lot of dedicated people at SpaceX and NASA, this would not have happened. So it's just thank you for your hard work and dedication to achieving this the success of this mission. There's I think a few points that are kind of exciting to note. That the peak velocity of Dragon during abort was more than double the speed of sound. It went to Mach 2.2 and achieved an altitude of 40 kilometers or 131,000 feet. So I think these are pretty exciting specs, to be for the sport to have gone more than 3 times the altitude of a typical airliner, and to accelerate that rapidly away from a booster. And I think if you saw in the video, the booster actually exploded as expected. So that was very exciting, and it landed in relatively high winds at the ocean level, which I think helps us envelope the mission for when it is crewed, since we expect this to be sort of an enveloping condition for the winds at sea level at the recovery site for when crews are launched. So overall, as far as we can tell thus far, it is a picture-perfect mission. It went as well as one could possibly expect, and again, dedication. This is a reflection of the dedication of the hard work of the SpaceX NASA teams to achieve this goal. Obviously, I'm super fired up. This is great. It's really great, and we're looking forward to the next step, and I think we'll talk more about next steps in as we get further into comments.
And I'm super fired up too. This is really exciting. As we talked about when we all got together, gosh, was it a couple of days ago? We said this was going to be an exciting test. My boss told me, hey, don't talk about launch vehicle launches and exciting at the same time, but I think you guys saw today that it was a very exciting test. I'm also super proud of the team. I really appreciate the comments from Jim and Elon. Not only was it a NASA SpaceX team, it was a multi-agency, the FAA, the Air Force, the DET, everybody's out there, made sure that we had imagery assets and the ability to be able to accomplish this mission. And honestly, folks are out there right now recovering the spacecraft, which is going to be very, very critical for us. We're super excited that it all went well. We talked about needing to thread the needle with all the weather, and we did. We did have to thread the needle. In fact, the needle was getting the head, the eye was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and all this will be good data for us and for our crews that will be flying soon. So thank you, Elon, to your team. Fabulous job. Thank you to the NASA team. Fabulous job, and looking forward to the next steps.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Wow, what a day. Yeah, I also want to say it's very exciting to see this, and it's great to get to this major test milestone. We appreciate certainly all of the hard work that the NASA and the SpaceX teams and everybody else that made this event happen. As crew members, our families, you can imagine, we're very interested in these escape systems and how well they work. And so we're going to be following very closely as the data comes in, and we continue to analyze it and see what that means. And in fact, the work is ongoing, as was mentioned. The recovery operations, Bob and Doug, the DM2 crew, are actually taking this opportunity to follow those operations and see what they can learn from that, because this is one of the first time, or one of the only times they'll have an opportunity to see those operations when it's not them. So again, congratulations, and we look forward to the next steps as well.
And since my comments are the only thing between us and your questions, I'll keep it brief. First, to our families that are out there watching, a lot of them were very interested in this test for obvious reasons, and so far what we've seen is what we expected. So that's the first one. And then to you all, the team that has helped make this happen, SpaceX, NASA, the Air Force, and all of the folks who worked so hard to get us to this point, from the crew, but also from our families, we want to say thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to now take questions from the media. We'll take a few questions here, and then we'll go to those that have called in social media. With that, we'll first start with Marcia.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press. Elon, Kathy told us the other day that you could carry crew as soon as March. Is that feasible, and when do you think the crew launch might be?
Well, we were just talking about this in the green room, and my guess is the first question that will be asked is. So we agreed on a response. So it's collectively. This is not. So the hardware necessary for the first crewed launch, we believe, will be ready by the end of February. However, there's still a lot of work once the hardware is ready to just cross-check everything, triple check, quadruple check, go over everything again until every stone has been turned over 3 or 4 times. And then there's also the schedule for getting to space station. So because space station has a lot of things going to it. So what's the right timing for this? And the sort of collective wisdom at this point is that we think we're highly confident the hardware will be ready in Q1, most likely end of February, but no later than March. And that we think it appears probable that the first crewed launch would occur in the second quarter.
Oh, I think that's a very fair assessment. I would also say we have to make some decisions on our end from a NASA perspective. Do we want that first crew to be a short duration, or do we want it to be a longer duration? If it's going to be a longer duration, then we have to have some additional training for our astronauts to actually be prepared to do things on the International Space Station that we weren't planning to have that initial test crew necessarily do. So we've got to look at that and make a determination. Do we want that first crew to be longer duration, or do we want them to be a quick turnaround? And those are decisions that we're going to be making in the coming weeks. But as Elon said, there's a lot of we have to understand all of the data. This was a test. It looked beautiful. We all loved watching it. But now the work begins for evaluating everything that we're going to learn on this test.
Yeah. To be clear, the data or telemetry all looks picture perfect, at least as far as we've seen thus far. But we need to physically recover the spacecraft and confirm that there's not something not an issue that perhaps didn't show up on telemetry. Yeah.
Chris Davenport.
Hi, Chris Davenport from the Washington Post. I guess for Elon and Jim, and I wonder if you chose this as the second question in your betting pool, if you could talk about how profound it would be and what it would mean to restore human spaceflight from U.S. soil. It seems like we're at a real turning point, and it's just that closer, what that would mean from both SpaceX perspective and from NASA's. Thank you.
I'll let you go, Elon.
Oh, okay, I was going to let you. Well, I think it's really quite profound. I think the United States is very much a nation of explorers, a distillation of the human spirit of exploration, and it's obviously something that appeals to people with who have an adventurous. Anyone who has an adventurous bone in their body is going to be very excited about this, and I think it will help reinvigorate interest in space. It's remarkable to think that the last time that a crewed launch vehicle departed from the United States was, I believe, 2011 or thereabouts. So it's been almost a decade, which is remarkable, and so I think it'll be really profound to have that. It's kind of to be back in the saddle again and to be launching frequently with an astronaut crew. I think it's something that matters to all Americans and to people worldwide.
And I would say certainly we are 100%. We are a nation of explorers. We're also a nation that leads, and this, of course, represents us returning American astronauts to space on American rockets from American soil. So this is a great opportunity for us to once again lead. And this time when we lead, we're doing it differently than we've ever done it before. NASA is going to be a customer. We're going to be one customer of many customers, and we want Elon to have lots of customers. But we also want to have numerous providers. We need dissimilar redundancy. You guys have heard me say this. I'm going to keep saying it. We've had days in this country where we lost a space shuttle and our space program was down for a period of years at a time. We need to make sure that we have redundancy in a way that doesn't happen again. And of course, if we look at what we've done with commercial resupply to the International Space Station, there's a perfect example of how sometimes when there is a setback, we can continue to move forward because we have other solution sets to accomplish the objectives. So all of this is important for a very specific reason. We're on the cusp of commercializing low Earth orbit. I want to see large amounts of capital flowing into activities that include humans in space. And those activities could be industrialized biomedicine, it could be advanced materials, and it could be people that want to go to space for tourism purposes. But I will tell you this, there is a future where space is commercialized. And I also want to be clear that NASA will always have a presence in low Earth orbit. We are not, there's a lot left to learn. We are only on the beginning of what we're going to learn. So what does that mean? That means NASA is going to be a customer. We just want to make sure there are customers that are not just NASA. That drives down our costs, it increases our access, and it's not just for us, but for the entire world and for the private sector as well.
Next question. Lauren, second row.
Hi, Lauren Gresh with The Verge. The explosion that happened today with the Falcon 9 looked really cool, but I'm curious to know what would happen if an explosion like that occurred while the Crew Dragon was still attached. The Crew Dragon was quite a bit away when it occurred, but is there any concern about that happening for the crew's safety, and how quickly does that capsule move away in those first couple of seconds?
Sure. In principle, the system is designed to withstand a sort of a first stage booster explosion that is, or upstage explosion that is that happens when basically even before the escape event. So it's intended to be very robust in principle. And the way to think of the rocket booster is it's less of an explosion than it is fire. So it's a fireball, but it's much more fireball than it is an overpressure event like an explosion. since the spacecraft has a very powerful base heat shield and even leeward side heat shield, it should be really not significantly affected by a fireball. So it could quite literally, like something out of Star Wars, fly right out of the fireball. So that's obviously we want to avoid doing that, but but it is really meant to be something that can fly out of the fireball. Maybe a few points that are worth mentioning. That in how is Dragon better than some what was done, say, during the Apollo era. The fact that the launch abort system is integrated with the spacecraft, with the Super Draco thrusters in the sidewall, means that you have launch abort capability all the way to orbit. And whereas previously with the launch escape tower, that because it's so heavy, that is discarded often just 20 or 30% of the time into flight. So shortly, not long after liftoff, the typically launch escape tower, which is sort of the historical architecture, would be discarded. So you would lose the ability to abort after that point. Whereas Dragon has abort capability all the way to orbit. And then if you have a state change, anything that's a significant state change post liftoff is something to be concerned about. And not having to eject the launch escape tower, I think, is also an improvement in safety. So I think those two are significant steps in the right direction. There's also an improved ability for reusability. Since you're not throwing away the launch escape tower, you retain the Super Draco thrusters. That you can now reuse the launch escape system with every flight, because it should hopefully be very rare that the escape thrusters are used. So that I think those three points are a meaningful improvement over designs in the past. And then one of the things obviously this requires ongoing discussions with NASA, but I think it would be quite cool to use the boats that we are using to catch the fairing, once that is really well established, to catch Dragon as it's coming in from orbit, and then that would alleviate some of the constraints around a water landing. But that's obviously there's some time before making that happen, and we obviously need to recover fairings reliably before we would consider trying to catch the Dragon. But I think that would be also an improvement as opposed to landing in the water.
And if I can just add one thing to what Elon's saying, one of the most important things is that we're monitoring the vehicle, the launch vehicle, to make sure that you're recognizing when the launch vehicle is having a problem so that the abort system's working, right? So we've spent a lot of time together talking about, how does the spacecraft monitor the launch vehicle and then make sure that it's going to abort before it starts getting into those situations too, right? So all the things Elon's kind of like icing on the cake and additional. The spacecraft's robust. It can handle, these kinds of situations, but more importantly, we're getting the crew away before the launch vehicle is in a position where you're having to expose the crew to the fireball, right?
So and everything he said is absolutely accurate. There are huge advantages to integrating the launch abort system into the spacecraft itself, and those advantages are we can abort all the way out to almost space. The downside is it's engineeringly it's a very difficult thing to achieve, and of course we learned that back in April when we had some oxidizer go into the pressurant system and resulted in a catastrophic loss. But that's why we do these things. That's why we test, and because of the way we're acquiring this, we have very innovative partners that are doing things that have never been done before with a purpose. The purpose is to ultimately save lives, drive down costs, and increase access to space. So all of these things are working. It is absolutely true that we will have setbacks as we learn these things, but it is also true that we are going to be better off for it. And of course, what Kathy said is absolutely true as well. This spacecraft knows precisely where it is in space. latitude, when I say space, I don't mean outer space, I just mean in space in general. Latitude, longitude, altitude, yaw, pitch, roll, trajectory, velocity. It constantly knows where it's supposed to be, and it knows what's happening to it. And so it can make a determination early, before the explosion were to happen, to execute the launch abort capability. So I think we're where we need to be, but it hasn't been without pain, and going forward, we're going to be better for it.
Great. Joey, second row. Yep.
Question for Jim and Elon. First, Elon, will you be able to recover any of the Falcon 9 or its second stage? How badly damaged was it when it hit the ocean? And have you? There was a pretty tall plume of smoke, so I don't know. And for future Crew Dragon missions, have you signed up any private astronaut missions yet? Does this test kind of push forward any agreements with that? And for Bridenstine, similarly, have you signed up any international partners? And what does this mission mean for that? Thanks.
Well, there's definitely not any big pieces of the rocket left. If you saw something, there was a sort of object that was sort of falling. We think that's most likely the thrust structure of the first stage propulsion section, which is extra robust and has the engines in it. But that is going to hit the water hard and then be somewhere down at the bottom of the ocean. So we're not expecting to recover anything. In general, we would not expect to recover anything in a launch abort scenario. So that it seems quite unlikely. I think we don't have any anything to announce in that regard at this time.
I think we need more customers, is what I think.
Yeah.
But on the international front, you should know this. We have no shortage of partners that are wanting to have access to space, and this is going to give not just us, but them additional access to space. We don't have any agreements at this point to ride on these vehicles, although we're going to have, the International Space Station, we've got 15 nations that operate it. We've had astronauts from 19 different nations, and we anticipate those partnerships all to go forward. And of course, they're going to be very excited about riding on a Falcon rocket and in a Crew Dragon. Yep.
Great. We're going to take some questions from the reporters that are on the line. The first one is from Jackie Waddle, CNN. Jackie?
Hey, folks. Thanks so much for doing this. So I wanted to check in about the parachutes. I know it's early, but were you pleased with how the Mark III parachutes performed today? And then with whatever testing that you still have ahead for the parachutes, what are you still hoping to determine?
Kathy, why don't you take it?
So today was the second system level test, what we're viewing as a second system level test of the upgraded, what we call our Mark III chute design. SpaceX has been doing a tremendous amount of testing over this last 6 months. And really perfected the design, did a system level test in December, did another system level test, obviously today in a pretty stressing environment, and then we're working together to get a new set of flight chutes and do 2 more system level tests prior to our next crewed flight test. Working through that with SpaceX and looking forward to further learning and hopefully, smooth parachute functioning on the next 2 system level tests. But we're very, very happy. If you saw it today, flawless execution of both the drogues and the mains, and both of those were the new system.
And I would say from NASA's perspective, we are so grateful to SpaceX for stepping up to the plate in a major way to move forward with the Mark III parachutes. There was a time we looked at the safety factor from a Mark II to Mark III. Mark II was good. Mark III was way better. Elon and I had a conversation. I said, look, if we want to move forward quickly, let's go with the Mark III, and let's get as much testing as we can possibly get done between now and the day we launch Crew. and they move forward very quickly. I don't know how many tests you've done at this point, but it's a lot with single chutes. And now we're up to the point where we're doing full system level tests with all 4 chutes, and so far they're looking good. So we're grateful to the SpaceX team. I also want to say thank you to the Airborne team. I've had a couple of conversations with the CEO of Airborne, told him what a high priority this is for our nation, and they've been working overtime to make sure these parachutes are developed and packed, and we're grateful for their support as well.
Yeah, I'd also like to say thanks for the Airborne team. They've been essential in this.
This is an unprecedented amount of parachute testing, I think, that we've ever seen from a NASA perspective. So really great partnership across the NASA, SpaceX, and Airborne team.
Our next question is from Tim Fahrenholtz from Quartz.
Hello, everybody. Congratulations on the test today. I just wanted to ask if we could get some understanding of what the next couple months look like from an analysis perspective. How many people at NASA are going to be working on certifying the Dragon and the Starliner eventually for the crewed flight tests? And how does that compare to the experience during the COTS program?
Kathy?
So, I actually worked on both cargo and then now crew, right? And I'll tell you from a station perspective, which is what the cargo program was focused on, it's consistent between obviously cargo and crew. What's different is that obviously crew's different, and the certification requirements for crew are different. So I think even though we have a small program standpoint, I think we're probably about 2 to 3 times the amount of NASA folks that are working crew versus cargo, the certification aspect of cargo, which to me makes a lot of sense because cargo was really focused, the NASA certification aspect was just focused on making sure the vehicle could safely dock with station. For crew, obviously, we need to make sure we're certifying the ground systems, the operations, the launch vehicle, and the spacecraft. So obviously, that's kind of 4 times the amount of work that you had to do for cargo. So that's kind of sized appropriately to me.
Okay. We'll take one more question from the phone, and then we'll go back into the room. And next is Irene Klotz from Aviation Week.
My question's for Elon. Does this in-flight abort test have any applications for programs beyond commercial crews, specifically for Starship? And also, does somebody have the exact wind speed at the recovery site? Thank you.
Okay. No, I don't think this has. It's not directly relevant to Starship, as we do not expect to use parachutes on Starship. Albeit, like the only reason Starship is happening is because of the progress made with essentially all the work done by NASA and others before SpaceX even started, and the support that we've received after starting, without which Starship would not be possible. And I didn't catch the second question. Wind speed touchdown. Wind speed touchdown, I believe was I think around 25 to 30 feet per second.
Wind speed at touchdown was 27 knots.
Yeah, 27 knots. Yeah.
Feet per second, sorry,
Feet per
27 feet per second.
Yeah.
17,
So
17, yeah, 20, yeah, I'm sorry, 20 knots. That would have been a stressing test. Sorry.
It was oscillating, but it's sort of in the high 20s.
14 to 18 knots,
Yeah.
and I think we got like
But
27 feet per
it
second.
provides a good envelope in case for crewed missions.
Yeah.
Our next question?
Mary Liz with Cosmic Perspective. So the first thing I want to say is congratulations on this very exciting, momentous occasion. When you two walked in the room, you were beaming, and so I really want to hear from you what it was like. Where did you watch from? Was it the control room? Was any of your family with you? And what did you learn?
So yeah, we were in the firing room, and anytime you see a rocket launch is very exciting. And obviously, the significance of this particular launch and the test was something that we were particularly interested in, and to see that our families were not here with us; they were back home. But I did receive a text from my wife right afterwards, and said everything looked good from her perspective. So. So they're obviously very interested in it as well, and again, every time I'm out here, this is just a special place, and when you get to see these rockets launch, it just gives you goosebumps, and I'm getting goosebumps again right now.
So no, the families weren't there. My wife also was in touch via text message, and learning that happened today, or maybe relearning or adding more context to the fact that we have an amazing team working through the issues with the weather and making sure that the vehicle, both Falcon and Dragon, were ready to launch. It was just impressive to be on the loops and listen to them disposition all of those things and make sure that we would have a test at all. So just getting to the point where we could launch, it was impressive to be there amongst the folks making it happen.
Great. We're going to take a question from social media quickly.
All right, I have a question from Ashley James Lee. She says, great test, well done. What would be the reason for the splashdown being earlier than expected on the timeline?
It wasn't.
I thought it was pretty much right on target for what we were expecting. So obviously we can go back and look at the data, but right now it's looking like things were pretty nominal.
Yeah.
Next question. Right here, third row. I don't know if I got it.
Thank you. Sawyer Rosenstein with Talking Space. So I know a lot of the focus is obviously going to be on the data from the Crew Dragon, but I was also wondering how much data you were able to get after the breakup of the first stage, and if there's any plans to use that data for possible future mission parameters for crew or for range or anything like that.
We lost telemetry on the first stage shortly after it exploded.
From the breakup of the vehicle that could possibly change design or engineering in the future of it?
It's possible, but it's too early to say at this point.
Gotcha.
Okay. Third row, I'm sorry, on this side with the hat.
Hi, I'm Jim Siegel. I'm with NASA Tech, and I have a couple of questions. Well, actually, one question, I suppose, for the two astronauts. I understand you went through kind of a dress rehearsal on Friday, so you got a chance to get into the capsule while it was atop the rocket. And I'm interested in what kinds of activities that you did while you were doing this. So what systems did you check out? Did you eat? Did you take a nap? What did you do?
Right. So the dress rehearsal, actually, Bob and Doug were the ones that participated in that as the DM2 crew. And essentially it started from crew wake-up all the way through listening to a weather brief and then getting handed over to SpaceX at the suit-up room. And so they were then able to don their suits and go through that full process of checking the suits for leaks. And then from there, walking out to the vehicles, getting in the convoy, and going from our crew quarters over to the launch pad itself, and then going up onto the tower and walking out on the crew arm. They did not actually get into the vehicle because the vehicle wasn't in a configuration for them to get strapped in or anything. And so that was the point where that dress rehearsal ended. A lot of that data was timeline type data that we were getting, just making sure everything flowed together. The communication was good between all of the different team members. And I think there was a lot of lessons learned that came out of it, and people are making adjustments as necessary based on what we saw. Anything else? Nope. Yeah. Thank you. You bet.
Okay. Chris, over here in the second row.
Chris Gebhardt with NASA Spaceflight for Jim and Elon. So you mentioned that the decision will be forthcoming in the next few weeks as to whether DM2 will be short duration or long duration. I'm wondering from NASA's side why that hasn't been decided yet this close to a particular launch, especially with the U.S. crew segment reducing down in size in the coming months? And from SpaceX's perspective, is there anything that would have to be done to the capsule at this point, depending on what that decision is?
So by standard, if we go with the plan as it currently stands, we would launch, DM2 as a short duration test flight, and then we would have an operational flight test later with our 2 astronauts here, and they would do a long duration flight. So that's one solution, and that's where things stand as of right now. But we might look at making that first crew be a longer duration crew for the purpose of getting the maximum amount of capability out of the International Space Station. With having, basically, we'll be able to maintain a larger presence of astronauts on the space station for a longer period of time. So there's another competing interest here, and in order to make that happen, that first crew for DM1, the test flight, would need to go through some additional training for a longer duration flight to do activities on the International Space Station. It also gives us opportunities to do extravehicular activities that may not right now be scheduled, but may pop up based on things that happen on the ISS. And it's always better to have more crew on board for those activities rather than less. If we end up with 1 American on the International Space Station, then that American will be doing the EVA. And we want to make sure that we give us the best chance of success. Now, I'm not saying that this is the direction we're going to go. We just haven't decided yet. And we're working through it. But the good thing is, given what looks like to be a very successful test, we now have options. So that's a positive thing.
From a SpaceX standpoint, we'll make sure we're ready to serve whatever needs NASA may have. And so whatever decision is made, that we can support either.
Yeah, thank you.
And we've insured the vehicle. We've been working with SpaceX to ensure the vehicle really has had the capability to be able to have a longer duration mission really over the last 6-7 months. Been working with SpaceX. Just like Jim said, you always need to have options when you're dealing with these types of missions.
Emery in the 4th row.
Hey, question for Elon. Obviously, an abort scenario is a different kind of stress on the
stress,
yeah. I'm wondering if that impacts reusability. Do you get fewer flights out of a Crew Dragon in that scenario, or is that to be determined?
I'm not sure. We would really require a lot of thought and, of course, support from NASA to refly a Dragon that went through an abort. I hope that this is such a rare event that the circumstance never comes up.
I'll tell you one thing that impressed me. When we looked at the ballistic reentry that Nick Hague went through on a Soyuz rocket just a year ago, he was up around 6.5, almost 7 G on that ballistic reentry. Now, he was at a much higher altitude, but this entire launch abort sequence that we just saw, the highest G state was about 3.5 Gs, and then when it was coming back, we're looking at like 2.3 G, which is that's impressive. It looked like it would have been maybe a rough ride, but the data didn't bear that out, and I think that gives our astronauts some confidence that the ride might not be so bad if we have to execute one of these launch abort capabilities.
Yeah, the launch abort capability is in principle capable of up to sort of six or more Gs, but it limits the acceleration to maximize the comfort of or safety of the astronauts. So it's reconfiguring depending upon what achieves the maximum probability of safety and minimizes injury.
Next question. To the writer.
Hi, Stephen Clark from Spaceflight Now. Can someone update us on the condition of the spacecraft after the splashdown? Have the recovery teams got to it? Is it on the boat yet? And seats from Russia to get through the year or into next year, or is that still ongoing?
So at this point, as much confidence as we have in the team, I think it's probably not prudent to go that direction. I think it's important that we have options. Again, we want to increase our option space and make sure that the International Space Station has continuous American presence. And so we're not ready to make any adjustments on that front. We're going to buy another Soyuz seat.
Sorry, I was just looking to see if I'd received an update, but I think the recovery vessel is just securing it right now, so we do not have additional information at this time.
Question here, second row.
Congratulations, Robin from Supercluster. Have you flown the Dragon simulator in Hawthorne, and have you tried on the suit multiple times?
I've tried. I've tried on the helmet, and I've flown the docking simulator several times. You know,
I'll tell you, I am. I nailed it first time, and of course every time since.
But you had Bob and Doug's help.
I did.
I know.
I think it's good. Having played a lot of video games as a youth is probably helpful. But it's the Dragon actually approaches the space station very slowly, so it's actually very much slower than people realize. So I think it's not very difficult to dock with the space station because it is approaching very slowly, and you have very fine controls. In fact, you can adjust between sort of course corrections and fine control corrections. So you can adjust the thrusters to have sort of nuanced effects, or like broad brushstroke, fine brushstroke, and I think it's pretty straightforward to dock in light of that.
Tim?
Tim Dodd, the astronaut. Question for pretty much anyone who can answer it. Elon, Kathy, Jim, the exact sequence of events today. It was kind of hard to tell actually when we're seeing the feed, and of course from the press site we just saw a cloud. Was it an engine shutdown was the initial trigger, and then did the Dragon, was the actual abort sequence? Was it the Dragon was triggered to abort, and then the engines shut down after that? And then, or was it like the shutdown of the engines? And then the sequence of events was actually kind of confusing and hard for us to figure out. And of course, we didn't really see much. Can you actually run us through what exactly was programmed when and how it all triggered and what triggered what, I guess, the chain of events?
Actually, I was thinking about posting the time sequence of events, what occurs in the course of about 700 milliseconds. It's really way more than a human could do is occurring in a fraction of a second. But the engines there's a command to the engines to shut down, and then the abort system then presses up very rapidly. The Super Dracos are ignited. It initiates separation from the upper stage. But all of this is occurring in literally a split second, it's really quite remarkable how quickly those engines reach full thrust, and all 8 of them do, and then it controls via differential thrust of the 8 Super Draco engines, and so it's making those thrust adjustments at the almost the millisecond level. It's very, very fast.
And then the engines were shut down after that. So yeah. Then the launch vehicle, the first stage engines were all shut down at that stage.
So just to clarify, the actual, I'm just trying to still figure out if it's like because the engine shut down that inherently triggered the abort, or was that all pre-planned and hard sequence basically?
As part of the abort sequence, like if the system detects that there's the things are severe enough to initiate an abort. In this case, we set the abort triggers to be super low, such that they would occur at a very specific sort of velocity. As part of the abort sequence, one of the things that's done is issue a command to the engines to shut down. But you don't wait for them to get fully shut down. You issue command shutdown, and then you pressurize the abort system, the Super Draco abort system, and a lot of these things are happening in parallel. So you're not waiting for one thing to occur after another. A lot of them are occurring in parallel. But it's saying shut down main engines, cut thrust, and then pressurize the abort system and fire up the abort system with all 8 Super Dracos. It's capable of working even if one of the Super Dracos does not. So it's got engine out capability on the abort system, and then it's going, you know.
So remember what the goal is. The goal is to get as much separation from the booster as possible as soon as possible. And what we saw is we got some data on this initially. It was correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like a kilometer of distance between a mile of distance between the booster and the Dragon, and it was just in a matter of seconds that separation was created. So that just shows you the capability, and all the while, never exceeding 3.5 Gs. I mean, that's really amazing.
Yeah, even if it were to be the case that the booster engines continued firing after shutdown command, Dragon has enough thrust to accelerate away from the booster very rapidly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This is going to conclude our press conference. I'd like to invite if any of our speakers have some closing remarks.
I think we should have our astronauts say a few words.
Well, again, I'll just reiterate today was a very important day for us in the test program, and I think for all of the astronauts, we're very excited at what we've seen to this point, and we look forward to seeing the rest of the results. And we look forward to our continuing preparations for Doug and Bob to launch, and then after that for Victor and I to go up. So we're excited where we are right now. We're excited to continue training, to finish up the testing, and get ready for launch.
Well said. Important step on a long journey, and we're looking forward to the data analysis and learning more about the test today and the recovery efforts. Like I said, those are still going on, and yeah, we're grateful for all the hard work to get here, and looking forward to the work that we have left to do.
Well, thank you all. For more information, you go to nasa.gov. Thanks. Have a great day.
All right, and that concludes our coverage. I'm going to make you get down. Okay, you're not going to let me. Okay, so the dog and I are both very cold. And I think that concludes our coverage for today. Thank you so much. I can't see for the follow. Thank you for the follow. Ooh, let me get rid of that music. So this morning we have watched the SpaceX Falcon 9 launch from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on board. I really want to put you down. Okay, dog will not be put down. Thank you so much for the bits. Yes, I will give you all treats. I understand the floor is cold. I am warm. Here, you get that one. You get that one. And there. Malachi is asleep on a dog bed where it is also warmer. So this morning we have watched the launch of a Falcon 9 rocket from the Kennedy Space Center on the eastern coast of Florida right here in the United States. Atop that Falcon 9 was the Crew Dragon capsule. A little over a minute after launch, they, on purpose, shut down the engines on the Falcon 9 to make sure that the Dragon crew capsule would abort as necessary, as it is programmed to do in case of a less on purpose loss of thrust or something else from the Falcon 9. As was expected, the Draco engines aboard that Crew Dragon fired and off went that capsule. It took off along with its skirt. It then deployed the skirt, began to fall as predicted. The 2 drogue parachutes released as expected. Then the 4 parachutes released, and everything came back down to Earth. During the upward portion of the escape, the abort test, the mannequins only experienced 3.4 Gs. And on the downward part, it was 2.1 if I caught it correctly. This was significantly less than was experienced during the real life abort that took place a little over a year ago with a Soyuz launch. So this is all looking very positive. NASA is saying that they would still like to see some additional parachute tests. This is an upgraded parachute design from what was tested before. If everything goes well, Elon believes that the hardware will be ready for delivery in February, worst case March. And NASA is saying, well, maybe in Q2, if all additional tests go correctly, we're going to fly astronauts to the space station. There was a lot of hemming and hawing involved. Initially, they had planned that any such human tests would be of only short duration. But they also thought that these tests would be happening much sooner than they've actually been taking place, both for the Boeing Starliner, as well as for the Crew Dragon. Due to those delays, we're now looking at a situation where who we have on board the space station is constrained by how many launches we've already purchased with Russia. They are planning to purchase 1 more launch as a backup, but the question starts to become, do they launch a long duration mission, which is not what they had planned, or do they launch a short duration? Now, part of that question is, do they need to provide the astronaut crew additional training to what they already have? Which makes me wonder, why didn't they do that anyways? The other part is, how long can these capsules safely stay? Dog. The dog is cold. I'm cold too. Dog is making it hard to speak. How long can it stay attached successfully to the space station before they have to start worrying about it aging out? These are the things they have to worry about. My dog will not let me put her down. So I'm freezing. My dog is freezing. The other 2 dogs have more fur. They don't care. We're going to go somewhere warmer in the house, like right next to the radiator, underneath a blanket. And yeah, it was a good day to explore space. I am now looking to set up to be able to, in theory, roll the credits. I just need to find the correct button to push. That was indeed the correct button to push. I need to find another correct button to push and another correct button to push. We will return. What time is it now? There may be, I don't know if there will be, the Sunday Science Hour with Binary Ablaze. I'm not sure. Yes, she's going to pop on. So Annie's going to pop on and do the Sunday Science Hour. I will join in to watch. There will be Astronomy Cast office hours later today, probably from right beside the radiator. And we will figure things out from there. Tomorrow here in the United States is Martin Luther King Day, which we are going to pay homage to. There will be no Daily Space tomorrow. But other than that, come back Tuesday. get more science. And until then, wherever you are in the world, have a fabulous morning, evening, or afternoon. Cuddle a dog, stay warm, stay cool, depending on your temperatures. And we'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.